Hey everybody, Paul Vaillancourt here, back with day 16 of the 30 Pitches in 30 Days project. And today's pitch, I'm very excited about. We're more than halfway done. That's really pretty amazing. And today's pitch is a supernatural cop drama. I know that I've done a few in this genre, but this is the genre that keeps coming back to me. What I like about it, I think, is that there's like this supernatural thing in that sort of idea. There's a very clear demarcation between good and evil, and we can really clearly root for the good guys and against the bad guys. And I also like that it sort of opens up sort of the possibilities, that it's not like so pedestrian. There's like a bigger force at work and happening. I think that's really what I like about this genre, this little piece of the action genre. And so today's pitch is called The Deal. The Deal. And it goes like this. We open on two detectives, Mike Coyne and Hank Newman, and they are heading towards a tip that they got from a CI about a house that contains a bunch of criminals that they've been trying to track down. We find out that they're working on an ongoing case of some new mobsters, new organized crime elements moving into the city, and that's really sort of flip the table and everything, and it's a little bit chaotic. There has always been organized crime, but it had been sort of everyone is settled and in their own tracks, and so there wasn't as much like sort of upheaval and war in the streets. And now with these new figures coming in, it is war in the streets, and it's just not it's an untenable situation. And so Mike and Hank have been working on this idea. So they get to this house, and Hank sort of urges Mike towards a very simple sort of like, let's be a little crafty about it. But Mike doesn't want any of that. He is a straight shooter in the most literal sense. He just goes straight towards his target and doesn't believe in like the craftiness of it all. He thinks that sort of being more subtle like that tells the criminals that we're afraid of them. And Mike isn't going to have that. His dad was a police officer before him, and he tried to play it smart, and he tried to play by the rules and be clever, and he ended up getting killed by some organized crime figures, and the guy that killed him ended up coming to his funeral because he colored inside the lines, and it was thought he was untouchable, and ultimately he kind of was. And Mike is always sort of brought back with him sort of that he needs to color outside the lines in order to really make things happen. So they go into this house, and there ends up being a big shootout that kind of Mike causes a big shootout, and they end up taking the house, but not in a very clean or efficient way. And Hank tells him, "Look, man, you got to stop doing this." Mike says, "Look, I didn't get you killed." And Hank comes back with, "Yeah, but you're going to get yourself killed, and then I'm going to be the guy with the dead part, and that looks bad for me. Nobody wants to work with that guy." But Mike isn't having it. When they get back to the station, they have a couple of the guys that they arrested, and Mike goes to interrogate them. And again, just like a hammer, straight ahead, goes straight after these guys, and with very little result, other than after this interrogation, Mike gets pulled out of the room and he gets put on leave because he's just too violent. He's just too straight ahead. He's got to find a different way to do it. And now he's off the force. He's just a citizen now. So he's kind of farther away from his goal than he was. He wanted to affect change from inside the system. Now he's outside the system and really can't do anything. Except that night, he gets a call from one of his CIs, one of his covert informants, and he says that there's going to be a big meeting of all these new mob heads that have been sort of coming to the city. There's 7 of them, these 7 top figures, and there's going to be a big meeting of them tonight. And so he sort of tells Mike. Mike calls Hank and tries to get him on board, and Hank won't have it. And he says, "Look, you're not even a police officer anymore. You're a citizen. If you go there, you're interfering with an investigation. I'm going to arrest you." Mike says, "Great. Here's where I'm going. Come and get me." And so Mike heads over to this oil refinery, basically where this meeting is, and Hank so mad, goes after him. He wants to support his friend and his partner, but at the same time, it's crazy. He's going to arrest him, and sort of just they've got to do this a better way, and Mike just isn't having it. So they finally get to this oil refinery. Mike is ahead. and he sort of sneaks in and sort of stealthily makes his way to the center of this place where there's this big meeting room, and all of the there's these 7 head figures, and they're all signing contracts while one guy sort of looks on. He's sort of like he's a little bit of a shadowy figure. We don't totally see him at first, and then once all the contracts are signed, Mike sees that there is the CI is there, and they kill him. Not only kill him, but ritually murder him right in front of Mike's eyes, to the pleasure of this guy who was watching them sign the contracts, who is in fact the devil. Now, with the contract signed and the sacrifice made, like a wave of energy sort of rips through these people, and they sort of take on a sort of a new level of power. We can feel it in the air. But Mike can't stand this murder. He just like goes in, guns blazing, and sort of shooting, whatever. But ultimately, with their new power and with the devil on their side, these mobsters win. And they shoot Mike, and they kill him, and he's dying. He's bleeding out, and they leave. But before they leave, just all look down at him. There's a shot of him looking up at all their 7 faces, looking down at him, and they leave. And they leave him to bleed out alone. As he's just about to die, Hank bursts into the room, and then he freezes in midair. He freezes mid-run, and the devil is still hanging around. And he comes to Mike and he says, look, I see what you're doing. You really want these guys, and I'm going to help you if you want. I'll give you a little more time to finish your work. I'll give you the time to finish them. When you kill them, then you'll be done, and then I'll take you. But until then, I'll just give you the time that you need to finish your work here on Earth. Mike is in pain, and he's furious, and he feels this helplessness, and he feels just like his dad, and so he agrees to this deal and ends up signing this contract that the devil produced with a bloody handprint. And then when he does, the time goes back to full speed. Hank comes running in, grabs Mike, but Mike doesn't sort of just pop up. He actually bleeds out and dies. Darkness. Cut to 2 years later. We see that Hank is now living in Mike's house, married to Mike's wife. He's like now the father to Mike's son, little Mike. And they are living a sort of domestic sort of bliss situation. Mike is still present in the house with like pictures here and there, but basically they've all sort of moved on. They comforted each other through this crisis of losing your partner and losing your husband and losing your dad, and it brought them together and made them sort of the family that they are now. Cut to a graveyard where we see a hand jam up through the dirt and then slowly dig away and pull itself out. And we see this shambling creature. We don't see the face of it yet, but we see it shambling sort of out of this graveyard as it sort of like finds its way back to more or less human conduct, and it sort of makes its way across town to this house where Hank and this family his new family are living. He comes up the steps, tries to get in, the door's locked, and he bangs on the door, and then Hank answers the door, and we see for the first time the face of this creature. It's not Mike's face. It's the face of a criminal. Right away, Hank recognizes this guy as a criminal, a well-known violent criminal that Hank has sort of dealt with before and put away, and that he thought had recently been killed. And he warns this guy to get out. He draws his gun. He calls police for backup. And this guy and Mike, in the body of this criminal, now we understand, Mike is in the body of this criminal. He flees. He has to get himself together. As he's running, covered in dirt and grime and death itself, the devil comes to him and explains what's happened. Yeah, I'm giving you the time you need to finish your work here on Earth. I didn't say I'd bring you back as you. I didn't. You're in a very serviceable human body of a criminal, and you have to get after it. You have to kill these people, because when you're done, then you're done. And Mike, is furious, but the deal has been struck, and there's no getting out of it now. So he just starts, and he is now leveraging this thing that was his flaw in a new way, where he's just going straight ahead. He needs money, he takes it from somebody. He needs clothes, he takes them from somebody. He needs a weapon, he gets that too. So he's just sort of just going in a straight line. He's sort of the criminal now. Literally, he's in a criminal body, and his conduct is that of a criminal. But it's sort of helping him, and he's sort of like, he's making progress, and he ends up getting to one and then two of these criminal heads and taking them out. But as he does, the word sort of spreads through the other five. Look, there's someone who's picking off us. Like, there's someone after us. We need to watch out. So later on, there is a Mike finds out that there is sort of a power gala that some of these criminals are throwing, and so he says that he's going to go, and he tries to reach out to Hank to get him to go and sort of draw him in, but Hank still doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know like that this is his friend. Mike tries to convince him by sort of revealing some details and things that only he and Hank would know, but still Hank is not buying it. So Mike goes. Hank is on alert now, and he's going to go check it out, but not sort of as support for Mike. Mike ends up making his way through security and getting in. He's a criminal. Enough people sort of kind of recognize him or know him that he's able to sort of like use this to his advantage and get into this party. There's another gigantic firefight where he ends up killing two more of these mob heads, but at the same time, he's caught on security video and cell phone video, and a couple of cops see him, and now they know that this guy, this criminal who they thought was dead, is on a murder spree. So now he's moved to the top of their list, certainly above these criminal heads, and now Mike is on the run. But as he sort of gets away from this gala, and he watches sort of the aftermath from a rooftop nearby, he sees police coming in, arresting some of the criminals that are there, and all the powerful city people who were there sort of for bribes or whatever are now sort of, moving away, sort of subtly trying to get out of there as quick as they can. But now Mike he's a wanted criminal, and so he's on the move. He again reaches out to Hank and tries to get him on board and says, look, man, we need to go after these people. I've taken out 4. There's 3 left. They are the problem. They've made deals with the devil, and that's how they've been able to sort of take over this city so much. It's been 2 years. These people have really consolidated their power. So Mike's doubly uphill on it. It's not just these 7 people, but also now they've had 2 years to really ensconce themselves in the city. Hank is starting to believe, because it seems to reflect what he knows about Mike, and Mike's giving more details, and they end up meeting. And at the very same sort of situation where Mike tried to convince Hank to come with him that the very first time to come to the oil refinery, but now Hank is a little bit more on board. He's still suspicious, and he's not sure, but he's starting to be open to the possibility. Well, that night, some of the criminal masterminds, foot soldiers, see these guys together, and they end up getting the idea, and they kidnap Little Mike, and they're going to use him as leverage to make these guys let it go and stop following them, stop coming after them, right? But now that only steals the resolve of Mike and Hank. Now Hank's fully on board, whatever the reason, whoever, this is, or pushed his belief to the side, and now he's just pragmatic. We've got to do this. And Mike says, great, let's go to the house. So they go to this house that Hank's living in with Mike's wife and Mike's son, and they'll go to the house. They go into the back to the shed where all the tools and stuff are kept, and Mike shows Hank something that Hank didn't even know was there, a little secret compartment within which are 2 big duffel bags. One says fight and one says flight. Fight and flight. The flight one has money and clothes and some supplies and passports, all the kinds of things you would need to escape. That's not where they're going. They go to the other duffel bag, fight. It has guns and ammo and bulletproof vests and a couple of grenades. That's what they need. And they're going to go straight at it to the head guy. Out of the 7, there's one guy who's really like sort of the tip of the spear, the head guy. And he has a big house on the outskirts of the city that's really like a fortress. And that's where they're headed. So they head over there and they assault the place, and sort of, it's 2 guys versus this whole sort of small army, but that's not really what they ever expected. They expected like a big assault, and so they're able to sort of make their way through, sort of picking off people here and there, and they get into the house and end up taking out 2 more of these mobsters. There's only one left, the head guy, and saving Lil Mike. Mike tells Hank to take Mike and go, and he does. They're both sort of mostly concerned about his safety. There's one guy left, the head guy. The thing that he got from the devil, they all got different, all these 7 people got different things from the devil. One guy's super strong. One woman has like a siren-like beauty that she uses to control and manipulate people. But this guy, he asked for the thing that is the trickiest to get over, and that is he can't die. he can't be killed. He's immortal. He can just wait all this out. But he wants to go head to head with Mike. And he tells Mike, look, I made a deal with the devil too. And my deal says I can't die. Until I say the words that I want to die, I'm not dying. And I'm not saying those words. So Mike and this guy fight, and Mike shoots him, explodes him, everything that you can imagine. And it doesn't work. This guy's right. He can't die. He can't die unless he wants to, unless he says those words. So finally, Mike ends up realizing that he can't go straight at it, that his sort of usual way of doing it isn't going to work. And he ends up sort of burying this guy under a big sort of mound of cement. And it gets in his mouth, and so he can't say the words. He can't die. He's not dead. He's just stuck in a hell of Mike's own making. But he can't die because he can't say the words. But as the devil comes to collect, Mike says, look, here's the thing. You said that when they were all dead, then I'd be done. They're not dead. So I'm not done. So go fuck off. And the devil has to agree that by the terms of the deal, that's true. That Mike is just, he's free to go, more or less. You know, there's still this sort of thing hanging in the balance, but as long as this guy, this immortal guy, is stuck in the cement, Mike is still alive. But he's still in the body of a criminal, and he's still wanted for this murder spree. So later on that night, he goes back to the house, and we see Hank and the wife and little Mike, and they're sort of sitting down to dinner. There's like a clattering outside in the shed, and Mike and Hank sort of peers out the back window to see what it is, and little Mike comes out and says, "Hey, who's that? What's going on?" He's like, "Oh, nothing, just an animal, just trying to get some food or whatever." But we see that it's Mike in his criminal body, obviously, and he's got the flight bag, and he's heading out. He just hooks it over his shoulder and takes one last look at his old life, at his old house. He waves to Hank. They sort of say their goodbyes kind of silently. And then Mike just kind of walks off into the night as it starts to rain. He's got this bag, this money, some passports. He's going to start over somehow. But he's completed his work. And that's what he wanted to do at the beginning, and he sort of got what he wanted, but not in the way that he wanted it. But it's done. And the screen fades to black. And that's day 16. That's the little thing called The Deal. I'll see you tomorrow for day 17. Thanks for watching.